What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So right now there's a lot of talks regarding the Build Back Better Act, regarding the voting rights bill, what President Biden is going to do, and how we're going to move forward with the whole Omicron surge. So here's what I can tell you. Right now, the Build Back Better Act has been put on the back burner for now, but only while the voting rights bill is still being worked out. And lawmakers say that the only way the Build Back Better Act is going to pass is if it passes through standalone bills. And there is still just not enough support for a large transformative bill, and that's the issue moving forward. We know the voting rights bill, this was originally a NASA bill to allow for leasing of the agency's properties, but it was recently changed, and I'll address that in just a minute. We know Vice President Kamala Harris, she says she is not going to absolve any member of the Senate for not taking action on the voting rights bill. Democrats are actually pushing to see President Biden forgive student debt, and they want to see this either done through an executive action or through the Build Back Better Act. We know the CDC director says that changing guidance should have been much clearer, and I'll address that in a second. And we know Dr. Anthony Fauci states that it's still too soon to say if Omicron will be the final wave of this pandemic. So let's break all this down. And I want to break it down because there's a lot of questions. Over the past couple of days, I've been getting a lot of questions from you guys of, what's going on with the Build Back Better Act? Are we ever going to see it pass? I addressed what one senator said yesterday regarding the Build Back Better Act and how it's most likely going to be, they're going to pass the core principles of the bill. But other than that, everything else is pretty much in question. So here's what we know. Lawmakers are stating that the Build Back Better Act still has a chance, but it will have to be passed through standalone bills because there's just not enough support. Okay? The issue with having a standalone bill is which bill goes first. We know President Biden still wants to see the child tax credit payments go. He still wants to see these get passed. And according to economists, they say this has to get done or else millions of families and children are really going to struggle. We know Senator Bernie Sanders, he really wants to see Medicare get expanded. He wants to see paid family leave. Progressives are pushing for immigration, right? And there's just a big mess of bills that are still being discussed. But all this falls on the heels of the voting rights bill. Now, the voting rights bill was originally a NASA bill that would allow leasing of their properties, okay? And this bill was ultimately changed. Now, let me explain what happened. The House of Representatives passed a bill. It was a voice bill on December 8th. Now, the Senate, they went and amended the bill. They extended the enhanced use leases, okay, which authorized, they changed it. Instead of 10 years, they authorized it for 3 months, okay? Big difference. But then they passed it unanimously. And it got sent back to the House because then the House would have to then vote on this again in order to pass the same bill. So what actually was done is House leadership, they decided that they're going to take the Senate's amended bill, they're going to pull out the NASA provisions and replace that with the two voting rights bills. And they called that the John R. Lewis Act. Now, being that this bill already passed the House, technically a version of the bill passed the House and it passed the Senate. So the amended version of this bill could go right back to the Senate. It actually goes through without a filibuster, okay? Because it's just a way that the Senate works, okay? And so right now the Senate doesn't have to worry about a filibuster because they bypassed that. But that's the issue, is until you really look into these things, you don't know. And that's what essentially happened is Democrats, they pretty much pushed the bill through, even though who knows what was actually in it. The American people were thinking, oh, we got these voting rights bills. Okay, cool. No, it was a NASA bill that they transformed into a voting rights bill. And that's what's ridiculous about this is how do these things actually go through? And yet the American people are just sitting here watching like, oh, cool, we got this new bill. No, it's an old bill. It's just they changed it. And speaking of this bill, this voting rights bill, Vice President Kamala Harris has stated, and she said this today, that she is not going to absolve any member of the Senate that will not take action on the voting rights legislation. That's what she said. Okay? So, when she was asked very specifically about Senator Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, that's what she said. Any member of the Senate, she will not absolve them. So, this is interesting because we are seeing a lot of reports saying that people should go against Senator Joe Manchin, Senator Kyrsten Sinema, and see what happens. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting how we actually move forward from this. We also know Democrats are pushing to see President Biden forgive student debt at this time, whether it's through some form of legislation that gets passed by Congress, we don't know. Or is this going to be an executive action? It could. We still don't know. But according to multiple reports, they are saying that right now, Democrats are increasing the pressure because of one main fact. The fact that we have until May 1st, okay? We have until May 1st to get this done. Because if not, on May 1st, that is when the student payment pause actually expires. And chances are President Biden and the Education Department are not going to extend this any further. So, according to lawmakers, they believe that President Biden has the ability, has the legal right to cancel an unlimited amount of student loans. And so that's what they're asking him to do. Cancel some of these loans. Now, I don't know if this is actually going to happen, but what I can tell you is that's where the discussions are. They're pushing to see more stuff done to provide some form of stimulus to the American people. And again, I've told you this before. I told you this, I think, this weekend as well, that lawmakers aren't trying to provide stimulus checks. That's not essentially what they're doing. Their goal is to provide stimulus. And when I say stimulus, I'm talking about forgiving student debt, because now that person can take that money that they were originally paying to their student debt, they can take that money and use it elsewhere. By lowering prescription drug costs, that's taking money that you normally paid for prescriptions, and now elderly or anybody can take that money and they can use it for something else. Now, one thing I do know is that this is one of the reasons why providing for affordable housing was seen as a very big thing. Because if you can actually save money on your housing costs, you can take some of that money and put it towards something like medications, put it towards food, right? And so that was the issue there. And so when I talk about stimulus, I'm not just talking about a check, because that's not what lawmakers are discussing. They're talking about providing additional assistance. That's the key, okay? So we will see if President Biden does anything on this. I doubt he does, but that's still going to be one of the big pushes for Congress and specifically Democrats moving forward. We also know that the CDC is stating, the CDC director, Walensky, is actually stating that changing guidance should have been much clearer, okay? Now, she says her messaging should have just been much clearer. And she went on and stated, and I quote, "I think what I have not conveyed is the uncertainty in a lot of these situations." She also stated that if people who have access to a test, they want to take a test, they can do so. But the issue hasn't been, well, if I have a test and I want to take it, the issue has always been that the CDC comes out and says one thing. Then they quickly adjust and modify their guidance based off of what the White House is saying, based off of what media is saying, and that's not the way it should work. They're also saying that they go off of the science. They're going off of what we have known moving really in the past, based off of, they say their guidance was based on over 100 papers on the risk of the Alpha and Delta variants before Omicron became the dominant strain. So, they're going off of all this guidance and science and everything, but yet they can't make a clear decision. It's baffling, and that's why I think a lot of people here just on this channel or through the media are wondering, who do I listen to? And so that's why I try to really push and let you guys know, here's what the CDC is saying. And like I said last week, take it as you want, because they're kind of iffy and they're really wishy-washy as to how we should move forward or what we should do. So it's interesting to see what's going on there, but that is what we know. We also know, and we heard from Dr. Anthony Fauci, and he states that it's still too soon to say if Omicron will be the final wave of this pandemic. And the reason he says that is actually pretty simple. And let me read you this thing that he says. He says, and I quote, "I would hope that that's the case, but that would only be the case if we don't get another variant that eludes the immune response of the prior variant." That's going to be the key. Do we see that the next variant is going to be less severe? That's the hope. The hope isn't that we have these different strains that see very severe, not severe, very severe, not severe. That's not what we want. What we want and what we need is it goes very severe with Delta, not severe or less severe with Omicron, to even less severe with the next one. If this happens, we could potentially get out of this, pretty much get out of this pandemic very soon. But again, he says it's still way too soon to tell. So we'll see what goes on there. We'll see what other disease experts have to tell us moving forward. But I promise I will be here every step of the way. Again, I just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.